Among the species of the Interplanetary Sentient Species Council, ISSPC, humanity was considered one of the most useless species. They managed to join the ISSPC by luckily encountering an ISSP exploratory vessel at the edge of known space when they had just left their planetary system. According to the regulations of the ISSPC, the captain of the ship had to offer them an invitation to join, but as a species they barely qualified. While the requirements to join the ISSPC were simply to be a sentient species and to be able of space travel, no one expected as primitive as them to join. The thought of a species meeting an ISSPC ship so soon into the development of their space program never occurred to anyone. While humans were biologically not an atypical species, they were technologically and sociologically a primitive species. They were constantly fighting between themselves, in the name of so-called countries, did not help the hungry and each other, and spoke thousands of tongues. A single of my horns contained more technological and scientific knowledge than their whole species. They had only discovered 120 of the elements which composed our universe. One of the only redeeming factors of the species was that their planet had copious amounts of dinitrogen. While nitrogen was present on the planets of other ISSCP members, the synthesizing of the molecule was not a naturally occurring process, and required a lot of time. Dinitrogen was an important gas for the construction of weapons and ammunitions. Humans could exchange their dinitrogen for what we considered basic technology, and nitrogen from uninhabited planets, as no other product from their planet interested others. The ISSPC being at peace, the need for dinitrogen was relatively low. As such, Earth, the human planet, never interacted with the other members of the Council for anything other than ISSPC meetings. The status of humanity changed 30 years after its adhesion to the ISSPC. A war had started. In the span of 3 days, 5 planets populated by sentient species had been razed. This new enemy, the Noctis, appeared from a quadrant of space that had yet to be explored. They appeared in Council space in an instant, and started destroying everything in their wake. Suddenly the need for weapons and ammunition exploded. Our centuries of peace had left us unprepared for such a conflict. Humanity's vessels were inferior to ours in number, quality, speed, strength, and fighting capabilities, yet they still sent as many as they could muster. They were, at the same time, only exchanging the dinitrogen for pure nitrogen, to replace the dinitrogen they were losing, a huge loss for them. After 2 years of war, the ISSPC was slowly losing. The Noctis had slightly inferior technology to us, but were far superior in numbers and were unburdened by long-lasting peace as we were. More dinitrogen was needed to create better weapons to fight them, yet the amount provided by humans at basically no cost was not enough for the members of the ISSPC. The representatives of the 277 member worlds of the Council voted in unison, except for the human representative, for one single action: eradicating humans and transform their planet into a dinitrogen-producing factory. As soon as the order was voted, the human representative at the Council was shot, and ships stationing nearby of the planet killed every last one of them on the planet. They would have been no fear of reprisals, as humans never ventured further than their own planetary system, and never made any colonies. I was a guard in the council chambers and saw the vote happen. I was shocked by the execution of humanity's representative, an action done in the glimpse of an eye and with no hesitation. In retrospect, the vote was too easy. I think the planets had already made their choice and took advantage of the humans' low technology. The destruction of the human species, and the transformation of their homeworld to make a weapon and munition factory, had allowed us to win the war against the Noctis. In merely 6 months we were pushing back, and in 2 years we had sent their fleet back to where they came, as a shadow of its original numbers. During that time I managed to climb the ladder, and finally became one of the commanders of the ISSPC fleet. They never came back, and we had 80 years of peace. That was until 6 months ago. An unknown ship appeared on the edge of ISSPC space. The closest member planet sent a delegation to greet the new vessel and offer an invitation. When the delegation opened contact, and almost immediately, the foreign vessel shot at it before retreating from whence it came. We were stunned. We did not understand what had happened. Was it the Noctis coming back with a vengeance? That was until we listened to the onboard recording of the delegation ship. "Welcome, traveller. I am Captain Crossbrook of the ISS PC vessel, the Krukshravel. We welcome you with open arms," exclaimed the captain of the delegation. What followed made my scales shiver. ISS PC, you say? Finally, we found them. And the recording ended. Everyone in the meeting room looked at me. Being from one of the species with the longest lifespans, I was the only one in the room who recognized the language used. It was a human tongue. I had forgotten this one's particular name, but I had heard it before when talking to the human ambassador. The other commanders at the table laughed at me. No way such a primitive species could have survived the extermination done by the members of the council. After some thought, I agreed. It was impossible. It must have been my mind playing tricks on me. The next 2 weeks were uneventful. We thought the attack must have been an isolated incident. We were wrong. As soon as we let our guard down, a huge armada of ships appeared from where the Throng ship had disappeared. In a mere week, they had destroyed 2 populated planets and 200 ISS PC ships. We were stunned. Not only were everyone killed on the planets, but it was all done at close quarters, using knives, axes, swords, and the such. The spaceships recovered showed that their engines had been disabled, and they were then boarded. We couldn't understand the logic behind this inefficient tactic. The enemy had simultaneously erased all data logs of the conquered ships. Not only were we fighting an enemy that used strange tactics, but we didn't even know the face of our enemy. If they had any casualties, they were taking the bodies with them when leaving. This all changed when my command ship was attacked by the enemy. Our engines were almost immediately disabled, and a boarding party had infiltrated the ship. We luckily managed to destroy the enemy ship before our weapon system was sabotaged. I took my blaster to help my troops fight off the enemy, and when I arrived, what I saw shocked me. In front of me were humans, exactly as they looked 80 years ago. What surprised me even more was their mentality. Even when shot to the brink of death, they would attack us. They kept mumbling the same phrase over and over again while attacking us and getting back up. It seemed as a way to endure for them, but for us it was a terrorizing spell. From the phrase, I only recognized one word: revenge. After hours of battle in the corridors of the ship, we had managed to defeat the humans. When sorting the fallen, we managed to find a surviving human. We rushed him to the infirmary. He would provide valuable information. After almost losing him multiple times due to the fact that human biology had almost been forgotten, the prisoner woke up and I started asking questions. I was not expecting much, and expected to have to use torture to obtain information. Instead, he responded to all my questions, and his answers made me shiver. I learned that before the war with the Noctis, humans equally shared amongst themselves the knowledge they obtained through the commerce of dinitrogen with other planets. Each country would send exploratory vessels in unknown space to establish colonies. However, one day the colonies received a message from Earth. "We were betrayed. Do not come back." One of the colonies managed to send a probe to Earth, and instead of finding a heavily depopulated planet, as they thought, they found out that the homeworld had been eradicated. This led to the first ever global alliance amongst humans. What we had done made them forget every difference between them, be it religion or culture. I discovered it took them 50 years to prepare for their revenge. It seemed they first thought humans were killed off by the Noctis, and only one member planet had betrayed humanity. They found the Noctis homeworld and attacked. In only 1 year, humans had destroyed the whole Noctis fleet and reached the Noctis seat of power. It was then they discovered that it was actually the whole ISS PC that betrayed their species. It seemed that humans had only planned on destroying the Noctis army and capital, as they considered dying at the hands of the enemy a fact of war, and that the Noctis went too far. However, the betrayal of an ally, in their eyes, was worse than anything. They took all the military technology of the Noctis and left the survivors alone. The next 25 years were spent adapting the Noctis tech, and the final 5 on finding us. This shocked me to my core. They held on such a grudge for 80 years, took 1 year to destroy an enemy we almost lost to, and we were fighting them now. Could we even win? I was pacing across the room, thinking. In those 80 years of peace, except for a few long-lived species like mine, no one lived through war. Humans, however, were fueled by the desire for revenge. I then asked, "If you are so capable, why board our ships and attack us directly?" The human responded with a sentence I will never be able to forget. You betrayed and eradicated our homeworld. As such, the face of hate and anger of the species you destroyed will be the last things you see before your death." He then jumped, took a scalpel off the doctor's table, and plunged it into his neck. He died before he touched the ground. We did not plan for this.